Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, no matter what time of the day it is for you. We want to welcome you to this episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And each and every week, what we do here at CBC Success Group is try to bring a subject matter to our broadcast that we feel is very important to the people that give us the courtesy of listening to us on each of our episodes. And today is no different because today we're going to talk about something that probably affects a lot of companies. We know we see it in our coaching practices. We know we see it with the people we talk to. We see it in Facebook discussions. We see it all the time, which is how do you get the people on your team bought into your mission, bought into your brand, those type of things like that. And I apologize. Sounds like we have a couple of active puppies in here today. So anyway, appreciate you being with us. So Sheryl, what's your thought on today's subject matter?
Well, it's a lot of it's the way you treat the personality about how do you get them to buy in. It's something that we've got to do, or you, instead of having a team, you're going to have a bunch of rogue employees, and they're not going to be cohesive. And so, if you can get them from the beginning, if you can get them to buy in and be part of the team, I think that's where we're headed with a lot of this today.
Great. And that's going to be some of the processes and methods to do that. And like I said, we base this because we actually go out in the field. I was actually working with a client this week, did a couple days of training. Brandi's headed out next week. She has two different clients that she's going to be presenting on-site training for next week. So Brandi, when we talk about this subject matter of getting all the people bought into your dream and to your mission, what's the thoughts that come to your mind in this?
Well, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And unfortunately, a lot of employers don't put a lot of thought into it. And so they end up doing it the wrong way. So today we're going to tell you how to do it the correct way.
Okay, so good enough. So stick around with us. We'll be right back and we'll get today's episode rocking and rolling for you. So we're back with you. And just like always, we know that Brandi Biswell has done research into this subject matter. She has a stack of notes in front of her, and she's got some ideas because she even sent us some of her thoughts before this. And we had a little meeting before we went live, and we talked about this briefly. So I'm going to be the first one to start. And here's what I think some of the issues are. I think one of the biggest issues that we face out here is that our workforce, we don't understand how they think often, and often they're not understanding what we think. Now, I formed this opinion because there's a lot of differences in the thought processes and a lot of difference in the way that people want to grasp this. So the first thing is, I'm going to ask you, do you understand the people that work for you? Do you understand what their dreams, their goals, their desires are? And even more importantly, do you understand the behavior patterns of those people? Because they are likely different from you. And a lot of times, this is where I see a lot of problems occur because people's thought processes just don't rhyme together. And it builds up and it builds up and it builds up to where communication gets really, really poor. If you joined us a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, we interviewed Mark and Julie Dent, and it was all about when they had done their SWAT meeting and how the SWAT meeting brought an understanding to them and actually brought out one of the biggest problems they had, which was the individual attitudes of the people. But again, it goes down. So Sheryl, what's your thoughts on what I just shared?
Well, I mean, most people don't know themselves. And you need to learn, you need to figure yourself out. And once you figure yourself out, yeah, communication's it. If you can't communicate with different personalities, and the three of us are we're different and we argue a lot. So it works well. We can't get along just with us three. So if we didn't know the personality of each here and know how they thought and how to talk to them, we couldn't put a thing on like this because we'd be bickering the whole time. But yeah, you've got to know your people, and that's the main thing. And not only do you have to know your people have to know the other people that they're buying into.
Gotcha. So, Brandy, what about you? Do you feel like that everybody understands? One of our watchers says, I'm totally in touch with their feelings. And if you are, that's great. But so often we don't see this. So, Brandy, what's your thinking on this?
Well, if you think about business, there's not a huge pot of things that are non-negotiable. A lot is negotiable. I'm going to give you an example. A couple weeks ago, we had one of our employees come to us and tell us that he had taken another job. We were kind of shocked by it. Okay, why? Well, because my wife wants me home by 3 so I can pick up our daughter at 3:50. He went into more of the story with his daughter. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Maybe we can change your hours. Long story short, not only did we change his hours, we went to the entire team of technicians and said, this is what this technician's doing. These are the benefits to it. Now you guys vote. Do you want to do that as well? So they had input in it. Now we as the employer still set some guidelines. One of the guidelines that Jeremy set is we're going to try this for a month and see if it works. If it doesn't, things will go back the way they were, or, we'll gather additional data and feedback from you guys. But that's how you get buy-in, is letting them be a part of the decision. Because one of the most common complaints we hear from employees is, well, I was the last to know.
And you're dead on the money. And one of the people that we follow and recently was one of our presenters is Randy Pennington. And what Randy Pennington works with a lot of times is change. And in order to make change within a company, what you've got to do is you've got to be able to let them share in the direction of the company. So that's a question for you. Do your team members, do they know where you're going? Do they actually know where you want to take this company to? Because a lot of times we find that they don't. Now, Sheryl, one of the things that you do, and one of your expertise is you are a disc assessor and you have attained the highest level in this. So that means that often you're having what we call a debriefing section. Sometimes it will be with an individual, sometimes it will be with the whole team. And so, what do you learn out of this type of stuff?
Well, if I'm doing when I'm debriefing someone, I've got them one on one or two on two, and I can go over it and show them how to read it. A lot of times people look at it as I'm a D, I'm an I, and no, you're not. You're a combination of everything. A high D can do things that you think they shouldn't, but it's because of their values and the other things that are operable in there. And so you just try to show them where what they're seeing is not exactly what they are. A disc is showing you what other people see you as, basically. And so I think everybody that I've ever done one with seems to have a much better understanding, number one, of the disc, and number two, of themselves, because we can dive deeper into the reasons. The disc it tells you. With the debriefing, we can take it into the reasons why.
Yeah. And our friend Chuck Roadhouse just posted on there, DISC is not a DIY. It means it's not do it yourself. You need a trained professional to help you understand the deep review the DISC provides. Without this interpretation by a trained person is a waste of resources, time, and money. Get the ROI by using Sheryl at cbc.com. So, Sheryl, what's your thought as you see Chuck offer that comment into what we're saying?
I think a man that had looked at it before is actually now looking at it in a whole new way, in a way that can be used for himself and his wife, and as a tool for his clients. So it makes me feel good because you've actually got to someone and they're not looking at it as a superficial piece of paper.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, what we're talking about here is understanding the behavior patterns in order to understand your people. Now, Brandy, you exactly were not a believer in a lot of things when you came with us. You didn't believe in SWOT processes. You probably had no idea about the DISC, but at the same time, as you've done research and you've learned, you've become believer in these processes that we preach. So when we talk about understanding of the workforce of what the mission is, how important is it in for that behavior pattern to accept it, from your opinion?
Well, I mean, it's critical. You have to, as somebody said, know the feelings of their employees. You have to know where they fall and how to talk to them. How do you appeal to their style? It's interesting when Sheryl was talking about the disc. I had thought last night. I don't know if we have any people out here who are fans of Big World, Little People, but it's a reality show, and my daughter and I watch it. They're from Georgia, and we watch it every night. Anyway, last night's episode, the dad was going into car sales. His son was in car sales and doing great, and so he decided, I'm going to go into car sales. And a lot of it was about his TikTok videos and making things to get him out there. And so it got me to thinking, I wonder what he is on the disc. He's definitely got an outgoing personality. But without seeing it, I'm not a disc professional. I've not been to any disc classes. So anything that I guess or anything that I say is just an opinion without any facts or research behind it. But I could go to Sheryl and say, hey, what do you think about this? And because she's been through all the levels there is to take about on disc, she could actually give me like a professional opinion. So Sheryl, we'll talk about that online after, and you can tell me what you think. Roloff is there. No, not Roloff. I'm sorry. That's a different show. Matt is his name, but you can tell me what you think, and I can show you a clip of the show.
Yeah. So Sheryl, while we're on this, one of the things that you can determine whenever you do these type of assessments, if people are introverts or extroverts. And I think a lot of times that's what we see. I can remember that Brandi had a young lady that worked for her. She was an exceptional person, did an exceptional job, but she was scared to raise her hand and ask a question. And that's often what goes on, that people don't like to raise their hand and ask a question. It was like I did training this week. And to be honest with you, if I call on somebody that's in the room and ask them come to the front of the room and do something with the chart, with the PowerPoint that's on the wall, on the pictures, and spot it out, the introvert is very, very hesitant. It actually raises anxiety up. And a lot of times that may be the problem, is people on your workforce may be really consumed by anxiety and they're scared to ask the questions. Am I on track with that thinking, or am I off track?
You're totally on track. A D and an I, as a rule, depending on a lot of their values, will run up there. Okay, let me do this. An S and a C, they want to know a little bit more. They prefer to know what you know, not for you to know what they know. And so if they raise their hand and they ask you a question, part of it's they're afraid of getting questioned back. But it's just a fear. It's not they're afraid of you. It's not their comfort zone. And that's why some people learn different than others, because people sitting in class that are of that era and can't do that, they miss a lot, because you get to somewhere and they can't stop you and ask you, where the D and the I are standing up and waving you down. They're not going to let you by.
Right. And this was brought, and the reason this came up, and Brandi, I can't remember her name, but what was the girl's name that worked for you that I'm talking about right
Olivia.
now? Olivia. That was when Olivia was there. And we learned a lot from Olivia in this, because Olivia shared with me a lot of her concerns. And it's helped me tremendously to gain an understanding of how to make virtual learning work for people. Because Olivia said something, and this could be your people, and think about this for a minute. And Brandi, I'm going to go to you to a minute so you can reinforce this since your observations. But again, she said she loved virtual learning. And the reason she loved virtual learning was she could stop that presentation at any time. She could go back and repeat it, and she could stop it and go do research on that. Okay. So this is a lot of times, again, I don't think a lot of people actually understand what their people that work for them are thinking. I know often somebody will get to the point that the employer's got to make a decision. I've got to terminate this person, or the person turns in a notice and is going somewhere else. And one of the questions I often ask is, was there a time that this was a really good employee? And I'll find out it was. And it's like, okay, what was the day? What was the events whenever you saw this turn that all of a sudden the antagonism came out, or the lack of cooperation, or whatever it was, because often we miss this. So from what I always said, how often am I on track with my thinking, or you think I'm off track here?
No, I think you're exactly on track. And back to Olivia, real quick. She is wicked smart. Even though she no longer works for us, she is helping my son right now study for his AP stats test that's coming up. Probably one of the smartest people I know. But I think we make assumptions, Jerry, is what you're getting at. We make assumptions about our employees. My assumption on this technician would have been that he was very happy here. He's always smiley. He does a good job. We love him. He loves us. He's got 4 kids and a family to support. He's probably going to be here forever. Instead, I had to question, why did he not feel comfortable coming to us and saying, I need to change my hours. This is what's going on at home with my daughter, or I'm going to have to look for another job. Luckily, we were able to turn around, change his hours, and keep him. But our assumptions were completely wrong because we weren't actually asking him, which is where we fall so short.
So what you're saying is, often as managers, as business owners, or whatever, we're expecting our people to come tell us when they have these personal challenges. And what I'm hearing you say is you recognize that you should have reached out to him. It's just like the person that was the Facebook user here when they said, I'm totally in touch with my feelings. Let me ask you a question. Did you feel that you were totally in touch with his feelings up till the day that happened?
I definitely didn't feel that he was having feelings other than what my assumptions were. I can tell you that. And I definitely, this is where, Jerry, we talk about the stay interview. And I definitely have been so busy lately with CVC that probably haven't focused enough on my own people and doing their stay interviews, because I probably would have found out that information had I been on top of it.
Okay. But again, so we see from this and we learn from this. So, Sheryl, when you do the DISC debriefing with an individual that works for one of our clients that's engaged your services, do you find that they have often had an open communication, or do you find that they are scared to express their true feelings to their employer?
The majority are afraid to express. They're afraid that it's their job. It can mean their job. They're not comfortable doing it. If they say anything, they're just so afraid of being looked down on and as not being the person that you need in your company. So there's still that fear of the owner of the company, because if we say the wrong thing, does that put us in a different class with our peers in the group? So yeah, and that's something that's really hard to pull out until they're into a business, unless I know the business owner really well.
Yep, I understand. So, Sheryl, you do a lot. You do some shows besides this, some broadcasts, those type of things. In fact, you were interviewed yesterday on by Lynn Serrano and Debbie, friend of hers, on a show that they do. So often people say that you speak in words that bring out their true feelings. It kind of strikes them. So how do you gauge a person's personality to say the right words to get them to share with Mama Sheryl what their personal problems are? Mama Sheryl. Okay.
Actually, their favorite aunt is what they call me. So yeah, it's you talk in their language. You want to make sure that you're talking in a way that they can hear you, where their heart hears you, especially in certain situations, because we had got off on some more personal subjects yesterday. And you've got to heart. I had said something yesterday and they thought it was so cool. You've got to have a heart to teach a heart. And if you can become part of the way this person feels and you understand it, you can speak to them. You may not have the answers, but if they just know that someone's comfortable enough to listen to them, and there's the big thing, if they will listen to them, and then, if you've got some advice, give it. If you don't, just hug them or something, because the main thing is you don't have them all, but if you can just give people hope that they can find the answers, I think that's where all comes around a lot of times.
Yeah. And Sean Kramer just put an excellent comment on there. I think one-on-one with each team member makes a big difference. It's something I know I need to improve on with our team. So when you look at it, like I said, understanding the people that are there and that kind of stuff. So, Brandi, let me ask you a question. You said, just like myself and Sheryl, and so you'll know if we've never told you before, we all have very high D personalities. And by being very high, we can be demanding people. Okay. In fact, Brandy's the very demanding person if you get to know her and everything else. But, Brandi, did you learn from this how you needed to control that D personality to communicate effectively with the people that you lead?
Oh, absolutely. Because as we've talked before, I have every single letter here in my office. And so I could really scare one of them with my high D personality. So I have to learn to temper that down and tone it down. And I wanted to go back to real quick to what Sean said too, because I think it's such an important point. What that is that's creating culture. It's creating a culture of an open door policy where we can get together and talk one-on-one, and you can tell me what's going on. And maybe if Sean's thinking about making a huge change, he can get their input by themselves so that there's not like the group think going on. Sean, one thing I would even recommend, and again, it's as I used to tell the nurses I trained, do as I say, not as I do. Because I'm not doing this, but I've always wanted to. If you can make the time, and it is time consuming, but just schedule with each of them to take them and meet them for coffee or breakfast and do the one-on-one that way where it's out of the work environment, they will open up even so much more.
And Brandi, so while you're saying that, I used to do something. I mean, if you face it, if you bring an employee into your office to sit and you with a meeting with you, you're on one side of the desk and they are on the other side of the desk. Now, whether you like it or not, that forms kind of a wall, and it kind of just puts you up on a higher level looking down on them. So a thing that I used to do years ago, Brandi, is someone I'd want to talk to someone and they come in, I say, come on, let's go take a walk. Okay. And we would go outside to take it off of where I was in control, more of a neutral type setting. What do you think about that?
So I 100% agree. And I'm going to show you for when I can't do that, because like today in Kansas City, it's pouring down rain. Let me see if I can get my camera. Hopefully you don't see my messy desk. So let's see if you can see over there. I don't know how to use the camera, obviously, to get it over there. I'm trying to show you you can see a sofa over there. There we go. So I have a sofa that it's directly across from me, because you're right. That's one of the things I learned years ago is when you're interviewing somebody, you do not want to have them across the desk, because you're not going to get good, open, honest communication and answers. So that way when I interview them, I ask them to sit on the couch, or if it's just one of my employees coming in to talk to me. And that way, all I have to do is turn like this and we're close and we're face to face. They're sitting on a couch. So it seems more of a relaxed thing than such a formal thing. And it just allows them to help relax and open up. So you're absolutely right.
So, Sean, think about that, because she may have said something right there. Because when you go in your office, it is an office door, it is shut down. So, those are the type things that you're going through, some of the changes you're going through that may help you in what you're going through. So, Sheryl, I've kind of went off on a tangent on this thing with over here on the disc side. What additional thoughts do you have of how do we bring our people into understanding our mission and our dream and buying into it? What's your thoughts?
Transparency. I think that is number one. Your transparency of what the company is. I mean, they don't have to know every single digit or things like that. That's not where I'm going with that. But you need to have the open door policy. You need to be able to open up to them when there's a problem. We always tend, when we get into a problem, the office shuts down and it becomes this secret thing going on. And then all of a sudden everybody's out of a job. So I think as long as you're transparent, you've got some wonderful ideas out there. Bring them in, let them work, have group outings, have outings at the office where it's not like a SWAT or anything, but where you're just standing around and talking and asking questions. Again, make it kind of like a family and get their opinions. Don't leave them hanging out there. Keep the communication open. I think that's where people start buying in. It's not always the money. A lot of times it's the people.
Okay. So good thoughts processes. What about you, Brandi? You've done some research. What did you have there? I kind of directed it my way for a while. But what's the thoughts in your mind here on this subject matter of gaining the buy-in of your people for your mission and your dreams?
Yeah, not so much the research that I did, but what I do. I've hired 2 new technicians this week. And one thing I do is I tell them, I'm not going to paint you rainbows. So I always joke with my husband that, like, if he's interviewing them, he's painting rainbows and unicorns, and this is going to be the best job you've ever had, and it's the best place to work. I take a little bit of the opposite approach. Yes, I tell them the good, but I also tell them when I've had employees quit, it's because of this, 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 and this, and this, and this. So I'm being upfront with them right up front. I'm telling them about the heat in the summer that they're going to be working in, the cold in the winter that they're going to be working in. I'm giving them those situations so that they don't come into this blindsided. And I think that's important for buy-in. Another thing that comes to mind, if you're making change and you want buy-in, you have to break it down into pieces, and you can't change everything at once. So, Jerry, one of the things that comes to my mind is Service Titan. We have a lot of our clients that are onboarding with Service Titan. That is a monumental task. So you don't want to bring on Service Titan, Phones Pro, Marketing Pro, and change hours and make all these huge changes at once, because you're going to fail. But if you bring on Service Titan and you break it down into steps for everyone, and this week you're going to watch this video, this day you're going to do this, and break it down for them, you're much more likely to get buy-in.
Yep. And that's a really, really good point of view, because actually we have a lot of clients right now and they are going through implementation of Service Titan, which can be a bear. And to be honest with you, every single time that we see Service Titan as a software fails, Brandi, would you agree it's going to go back to the way it was set up and someone strayed from the suggested path? Would you say that would be true?
Absolutely. And not holding your people accountable. One of the worst things you can do is make a change, but then not hold the people accountable to it.
Got you covered. So from that point, breaking it down. So, and see what I'm getting at here, we have people that are implementing the Service Titan, and also they have actually purchased Al Levy's manual system. So what we have here is we have 2 gigantic tasks within the company. And what you're saying is, if you try to do too many things at one time, Brandi, are you saying that that is one of the things that can blow everything to pieces?
You're going to fail. If I was an employee, I don't want to buy into that. I don't want to buy into having to change 15 things at once. You have to take it in steps.
Got you covered. So Sheryl, what's some of the ways that you could detect in the interview process that you're hiring someone that's going to be a problem, that could be, let's just say they could be, cause the train wreck to start occurring? How do you avoid bringing in a bad apple? And Brandi, I'm going to take it to you after I ask Sheryl that same question.
A lot of it, you look at how demanding they're going to be. Another way, totally the opposite, is how sensitive they're going to be. You can pick it out just in their nuances, especially if you see that they have that if they're troubled, because they're going to bring it into work. So, or if they have a lot of times you can spot a bad home life in there. You can spot a lot of things going on. I mean, there's a lot of different key factors in it, but a lot of them you can spot. A lot of people are very good at covering them up. So you have to read. You can't just look at it. It's kind of like I tell people, the DISC, the DISC, it's just the cover of the book. There's, in the other parts of it is where the body of the book is. So if you don't know it all, you'll read it wrong. And when you do that, you may chance losing a bad employee, or you're going to have that bad apple drop right on top of you.
Okay, so let me identify what you just said. What I just heard you say is, if somebody just looks at the front page of that disc and doesn't understand the values, it doesn't understand all the other things you talked about, what you're saying is there's no way to know these things. Is that what I heard you just say?
Exactly. I mean, my disc and your disc are almost identical. And I can guarantee you, no one looking at us or no one that knows us would ever guess that. But ours are identical. Our values are different. The way we handle things are different. You, excuse me, you are demanding. That's how you get what you need. I'm persuasive, but yet we're both 99 Ds.
Okay. And what did you call that? We talked about the values. What was the other thing? Do you call it the insights?
The insights.
Okay. So being able to determine what those insights are. Can an individual read this report on their own and determine this, or do they need someone to debrief them on what this actually means? Because those reports are almost 100-page long. Okay. And like Frank just said, this is scary. So, Frank, I'm sorry if we're scaring you, but we're trying to help it out here. Okay.
Can't, you can read it, you can get the verbiage. Let's put it this way. You know how long I've been doing this, and the insights I'm still learning on the insights. In fact, the people that trained me told me they were still learning on the insights. It goes that deep. And you can't learn it overnight. And to be honest, you can't learn it just from sitting in a class. I knew a lot when I came out of class. I'll admit that, because I was the student that wanted to learn. But I learn more every time I interview somebody. You get another little piece of the puzzle. You don't realize I learn as much as I teach.
Okay. So I need you to identify this. Mr. Mottola says he is a double D. What would be your answer to that, since we all know Mr. Mottola very well?
A double D, not unless his name's Francis instead of Frank. Will he ever be a double D? Now, I'm not going to go into that because I can't answer that for sure.
Okay, got you covered. So, Brandi, same thoughts. You're in the interview process. You're talking to this new applicant. He's sitting over there at this couch. You've tried to relax him as much as possible. How does Brandi Biswell determine that you got a potential bad apple sitting on that couch?
So that's where I love, love, love behavioral interviews. And so I determine it through my questions. I ask them, tell me about your worst boss ever and why. Tell me about a time you had a disagreement with your boss, what the situation was, and how you handled it. Tell me about what your pet peeve is in the workplace. And then if I'm currently hiring for one of my clients who is not in the chimney and fireplace industry. And one of their big things was they've had a lot of drama in the past. So then I'm specifically asking questions on drama, trying to see, are they a high dramatic person? If they say their pet peeve is drama in the workplace, we're like, great to go. But I do it all through questioning and watching their body language. You can usually tell if they're like making up some BS story or if it's a real story. Because behavioral interviews, I love to conduct them, but I hate to be the one receiving them because they're hard. They're the hardest interview you can go through. And then going back to Sheryl and the disc, I have to just reinforce kind of what she said. I remember when I got my almost 100-page disc, I think mine was like 78. And I remember reading through it before I talked with Sheryl and thinking, well, that's not right. And then I was interpreting things way different than what Sheryl explained to me. So I think that her debriefing is critical, or I would have had a whole different picture of the disc.
Right. And then I think Frank's clarified what he said. He was commenting the two high Ds being married. Amazing to pull that off. So my feeling on this, Frank, is why we can is I respect her point of view immensely. And Brandi, you've heard me and Brandi. I think that's the secret to our friendship. That's the secret to our relationship. We do not agree. Many times we'll actually be doing something and talking to a client, and we do not give them the same opinion. But I think that's the secret of two high Ds being able to work together is each know our place. When I look at it, Brandi, we've never been able to assess Jeremy. He refuses to take the test, okay? But we pretty well know where he's at. But in your company, you and Jeremy respect each other's positions immensely, and stay out of each other's way. Would that be a true statement?
Absolutely. Like I've paused our hiring for the next 2 weeks here at Flues Brothers because I'm going to be traveling, and Jeremy knows like that is not his skill set. That is not his strength. The same way, like ordering parts and materials is nowhere in my wheelhouse. And so we each have our own designated jobs. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't talk about it. It doesn't mean that I don't call him into an interview and see what he thinks as well. It doesn't mean that I don't tell him how to handle a vendor he's having trouble with. But for the most part, we stay in our own lanes. And you're correct. We respect each other for that. And we respect what each other says, because you're right. You and I and Sheryl don't always agree. And I think it's good. I think it's good for the client to hear those different perspectives. We all have our own biases.
Yeah. In fact, we were in a coaching rip and we had 3 coaches in there. One was Larry Wingate, one was Randy Pennington, the other was Scott McCain. And that was one of the things, which was you had 3 distinct different opinions that were being offered. None of them were bad, but it gave you the opportunity to give those differing opinions and listening to them. So at this point, I want to share something with everybody that's listening right now. We are getting ready to form another group coaching out here. And this is going to be a group coaching where all 3 of us are involved. So what you just heard is what you get in that group coaching. You actually get 3 different points of view on every single call. So if group coaching is something that you may be interested in, please reach out to one of us. We'll be glad to take you through the program. We're going to be launching our next group in May, and we'd love to have people that would like to be into this. We have a call once a month, and then we also have availability of 911 calls and other things between that time. And a lot of times it's been 911 with one of us. There's been times that all 3 of us have spoken with an individual group coaching client to help them in a decision. And some of these have been really drastic, such as, should I sell my business? Should I do this? I'm having this challenge, and different things that you can do. So, Brandi, what would be your thought process on why people should talk to us about group coaching? What do we bring to the table?
Well, I was kind of laughing, thinking maybe one of the reasons is because they won't be the initial group. So we've spent the last year with 2 other groups. And so we've had that last whole year to kind of perfect the group coaching process. And we've even changed our process along the way based upon the feedback we got from some of the members. So this group coming in now won't be getting, I equate it back to everything in healthcare. It's not like the first time I drew blood on a patient, they're going to be like the 10th person. So it's a more perfected system. Also, I think what we found for the last 2 groups is they have just enjoyed building that cohort together. And so it's not only us. In fact, we try to remain silent as possible as we can for 3 days and let the group give their feedback and let the group talk. And then, like you said, those 911 calls, I think, have really put a lot of people's mind at ease when it's right in the moment. They've got something big happening and they're not sure how to handle it. And they've got to handle it in the next hour or 2. And they reach out and we hop on a call with them.
Yep, and it's like some of them we've interceded. Like with we had one company that had a real challenge with Service Titan and implementation. We interceded with Service Titan to get them the help that they needed. So, Sheryl, what about from your standpoint? Why should people look at our group coaching? What's their advantage to that?
Well, as we said before, you have the camaraderie. You have 3 people that have worked really hard at doing this. If needed, we bring in another speaker if we would have to, or if we can't bring them in, we will find the knowledge out to get it back to them. I have been amazed to watch this last group grow like they have. I remember the first class, everybody was just sitting there like photos on a wall, and we were having to pull things out of them. And the last one, we hardly got a word in edgewise. They were working out their own problems. They were working with each other. And that's what we wanted to see. You need to have the peers that you can go to when you can't reach out to someone else. And we've had people make very good acquaintances in these. And I think it's been great. We also don't overlap anybody. If you live in a certain town and you have signed up, we will not sign anybody up on top of you at all. If we will let you know that someone's wanting in. And then if they're not a competitor, you can. But we respect your wishes, which I think's a lot of things that a lot of other coaching groups don't do. And it's just the group thing. It's kind of like having a team. I think to me, it's much more special than the one-on-ones at times.
And
Right.
it's more affordable too, Sheryl. That's what I always think. Like, not everybody can afford one-on-one coaching. It's expensive because it's hard work. But the group coaching is much, much more affordable. Plus, you have all those other opinions besides just your coach.
Right. And so people are aware, we have some people that are one-on-one clients of mine, and they are also in a group coaching group. So they like that. Now, to clarify what Sheryl said on there, if we have one person that signs up in a market area and a second person, we will take it to the first person. They have to approve their membership. But actually, right now, we do have two competitors in the same group that was approved by the original member that actually used to work for the first company. So it was kind of a strange relationship, but it's actually worked out extremely well. So as we go through here, let's give them one more idea about how to get this teamwork. So here's mine. And I do this during analysis visits, and I also do it often during SWAT meetings. And I say the following, and I say this sometimes one-on-one, sometimes as a group, and have them actually write this down. If you own the company, if you made the decisions, what changes would you make in the company tomorrow? What would you do? What would you change about it? And that might be something that you consider asking your people. What are the changes that you would make in the company? So that's one of my ideas. So, Brandi, what's one of your ideas that people could consider to do this buy-in exercise?
So I like if you as the employer identify a problem, instead of coming up with solutions, take it to the team and ask them what solutions they think. If you have a larger company, maybe even form like a small committee of 3 or 4 people, and you're going to work on this problem and you're going to come up with the solution. Because again, if they come up with the solution, then buy-in's not an issue.
Got you covered. And that goes back to what Randy Pennington said, which is involve your people in helping to set up the change. That's what it's like. It's just like if you're going to implement Service Titan, it's going to be a pain. You've got to get your people's buy-in, or they can wreck this whole thing before long and everything goes bad. So, Sheryl, what's your ideas? You got any additional ideas to share with people?
I think a lot of it would be to ask your people why they want to work there. What makes you want to buy in? I think that's a good start. If you don't know the answer yourself, find out what makes it great for them to work there, and let the other people interact with it. Also, one thing you used to say is the question, would you work for you?
That's it.
I think that's a way to start.
Right.
Find out why they work for you.
Right. We did an episode a couple weeks ago, and it was based on this book right here, which is by Dr. John Maxwell, The 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork. Because this is one thing, and it's what we did on the promotions for the day. If you're going to make your dream work, you better have your team working together, because without teamwork, your dream is not going to work. It's just quite simply the way it is. So, Sheryl, anything else you'd add on today's episode before we hang up for today?
My thing would be just to, number one, first look at yourself, figure out what you are, who you are, what you want, and then go to your company and find out the same answers.
There you go. Brandi, you got anything else you want to add?
Just that if you're interested in the group coaching and you have further questions, feel free to reach out to any of the 3 of us. Our emails are up, and we'd be happy to tell you more about it. One of the nice things is we always start group coaching with what happens in group coaching stays in group coaching. So it's kind of like Vegas. So you don't have to worry about saying something in there that's then going to be told to the world, which is what I really like.
That's it. So what we are CBC Success Group. We are a team of players, and our whole job, our mission, our dream is to help people just like you get past the chaos, to help you get to those dreams. That's what drives each and every one of us. That's why we do what we do. It's great that, hey, this is what I can do for a living. This is what I can do for my profession. Just like the other three of us, we strive very hard to make sure it's all about you. We want to help you get to and live those dreams that you hold in life. It's time to turn your dreams into your realities. And with that, we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. Reach out to us. You see each of our email addresses right there on the screen. Feel free to reach out to us anytime. We'd love to have a conversation with you.